John 11, let's take a look at the first two verses. Now a certain man was sick, Lazarus of Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. And it was the Mary who anointed the master with ointment and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Eliezer or Lazarus was sick. It's surmised by many that John wrote this account on the life of Yeshua some 50 years after his death. Mary was well known for being the one that anointed the head of Yeshua with that expensive oil. In Matthew 26, verses 6 through 13, we read, "Now when Yeshua was in Bethany at the home of Simon the leper, a woman came to him with an alabaster vial of very costly perfume, and she poured it upon his head as he reclined at the table. And the disciples were indignant when they saw this and said, 'Why this waste? For this perfume might have been sold for a high price and the money given to the poor.' But Yeshua, aware of this, said to them, 'Why do you bother the woman? For she has done a good deed to me. For the poor you have with you always, but you do not always have me. For when she poured this perfume upon my body, she did it to prepare me for burial. Truly I say to you, wherever this gospel is preached in the whole world, what this woman has done shall also be spoken of in memory of her.'" Let's go back to John 11, verses 3 and 4. "The sisters therefore sent to him, saying, 'Master, behold, he whom you love is sick.' But when Yeshua heard it, he said, 'This sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of Elohim, that the Son of Elohim may be glorified by it.'" You know, what's really popular today is that prosperity gospel. If you love Jesus enough, you're going to get that new Mercedes and that new house. And your child who is ill is going to be well again and be perfect. And you're not going to have any more troubles, no more poverty in your life. Yeah, that's a bunch of nonsense. That's ridiculous. In Elohim's will, he tells us, his will is that we suffer too, just like unbelievers do. But it's not because he doesn't love us. We're told in his word, we are not to judge whether Elohim loves someone by their circumstances. Look at Ecclesiastes 9, verses 1 and 2. "For I've taken all this to my heart and explained it that righteous men, wise men in their deeds, are in the hand of Elohim. Man does not know whether it will be love or hatred. Anything awaits him. It's the same for all. There's one fate for the righteous and for the wicked, for the good, for the clean, and for the unclean, for the man who offers a sacrifice and for a man who does not sacrifice. As the good man is, so is the sinner. As the swearer is, so is the one who is afraid to swear." You know, as a matter of fact, we're much better off not trying to explain why his people suffer. That's always the big question. Why? Elohim has a perspective on this world we do not have. His viewpoint is not limited in any way by space or time like ours is. He has a plan. We are to trust in that plan. That's what we're supposed to do. It's just as simple as that. That's why he says, "Trust me. Trust me." Verses 5 and 6 of John 11. "Now Yeshua loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. When therefore he heard that he was sick, he stayed then 2 days longer in the place where he was." You know, it seemed strange that Yeshua would stay 2 days longer when he heard that Lazarus was sick. He did that because he just told them that he was going to bring glory to the Son of Elohim. Keep in mind, Yeshua is not guided by sentiment. Okay? Sentiment does not guide him. Sentiment is what spoils children. Sentiment is what leads to immoral sexual behavior. Sentiment is what frees convicted murderers. Okay? That's not what guided Yeshua. Love is what disciplines, punishes, and also develops character. That's what love is. And that's what we see here. He's guided by his love for his people. Yeshua works according to the will of his Father and not according to the will of you and me. Lazarus is going to be used for Elohim's glory, and we're told that by the time he does get there, Lazarus will have been dead for 4 days. Verses 7 and 8, then after this he said to the disciples, let us go to Judea again. The disciples said to him, Rabbi, the Jews were just now seeking to stone you, and are you going there again? Both Yeshua and the disciples use the word again. Yeshua, he was just there, and he was forced to withdraw. Now he's going to go back. Verses 9 and 10. Yeshua answered, are there not 12 hours in a day? If anyone walks in the day, he does not stumble because he sees the light of this world. But if anyone walks in the night, he stumbles because the light is not in him. This passage is telling the disciples they need to walk in the light of Elohim's will. That's what he's saying here. That means, okay, I've chased out of Judea. They're going to stone me, but we're going back. This is the will of the Father. Yeshua is telling them to follow him because he's the light. He's the light of the world. To fail to follow Yeshua is dangerous, and it's walking at night without a light. Yeshua is quoting his Father's word, by the way. In Proverbs 4, verses 18 and 19, but the path of the righteous is like the light of dawn that shines brighter and brighter until the full day. The way of the wicked is like darkness. They do not know over what they stumble. John tells us the same thing in the first letter that he wrote. 1 John 2, verses 10 and 11, the one who loves his brother abides in the light, and there's no cause for stumbling in him. But the one who hates his brother is in darkness and walks in the darkness, and does not know where he's going because the darkness has blinded his eyes. Go back to John 11, verses 11 through 13. This he said, and after he said to them, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I go that I may awaken him out of sleep. The disciples therefore said to him, Master, if he's fallen asleep, he'll recover. Now Yeshua had spoken of his death, but they thought that he was speaking of literal sleep. So Yeshua says that he's asleep, and they think, well, if he's asleep, it's not a big deal. But it's not because he's tired. He's dead. He's using the term for death that's used in the Father's word, by the way. In Deuteronomy 31, verse 16, and Yahweh said to Moses, behold, you are about to lie down. It's that Hebrew word shakab, with your fathers. And this people will arise and play the harlot with the strange gods of the land in the midst of which they're going, and will forsake me and break my covenant which I've made with them. Well, they already knew what was coming. Look at that word shakab. It means you're going to go to sleep. Lay down and go to sleep. We also read the same thing in Daniel 12, the first 3 verses. Just a remarkable passage in and of itself. Now at that time, Michael, the great prince who stands guard over the sons of your people, will arise. And there'll be a time of distress such as never occurred since there was a nation until that time. And at that time, your people, everyone who's found written in the book, will be rescued. And many of those who sleep in the dust of the ground will awake. These to everlasting life, but the others to disgrace and everlasting contempt. Those who have insight will shine brightly like the brightness of the expanse of heaven, and those who lead the many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. Once again, it's the light thing. It's the light thing. Verses 14 and 15. Then Yeshua therefore said to them plainly, Lazarus is dead, and I'm glad for your sakes that I was not there, so that you may believe. But let us go to him. Yeshua is being frank. He said, yeah, David.
I mean, if you back up, I'm just curious. Who is Michael?
Verse 15. I'm just kidding. You know what the name Michael means? That's what it means. How'd you know that, Michael? Now, whether that's a reference to the glorified Messiah or not, I don't know. That's a very good possibility. Now, there are denominations, like I believe Jehovah's Witnesses say that Jesus is Michael. Michael is Jesus. Is that right, Charlie? Do you remember that? Okay. I think I know your religion better than you anyway. Don't think you paid that much attention at JW school, which is just fine. Yeah.
It's possible that Michael is a manifestation of the Father.
Yeah, manifestation of the Father. See, when it says the prince who stands guard over the sons of your people, once again, though, it could be something separate than that, because Daniel is filled with these. There is a prince of Greece. There is a prince, the country, not of the cooking stuff. There's a prince of Persia. Okay, those are spiritual entities that are described in Daniel that appear to be over entire empires and peoples, and that just could be Michael's particular people. It's Israel. You remember that? It's in Daniel chapter 10, where Daniel's praying, and after 2 weeks of fasting and praying, this guy shows up. And he said, man, I got held up. The prince of Persia wouldn't let me go. And then Michael came in and he blocked for me. And I got through the hole, and here I am. So, I don't know much about that, other than what we're told. And I would look into that and try to make it less. You know me, I'm not big into let's use spiritual stuff to explain everything. I don't like that. I don't know how to get around it in that case. So therefore, it is what it is, I think, at least so far.
Does that correlate with Ephesians chapter 6?
Yes. Our battle's not with flesh and blood, but with principalities and all that other thing. And once again, I don't want to go too far into that, because we're not really battling ghosts. Okay, none of us really need the devil to blame for when we do wrong, or blame that. Geraldine, the devil made me do it, or blame the sex demon or whatever we want to blame. Our sins are our own. Anyway, going back to John 11, verses 14 and 15. This whole thing here with Lazarus is being set up by the Father in order for us to believe. And specifically these people here that are present. Verse 16. Thomas, therefore, who was called Didymus, said to his fellow disciples, let us also go that we may die with him. There's another name for your newborn son you need to think about, is Didymus. That'll be unique. I guess it's a little Greek, maybe, but this Thomas was known as a doubter, and it sounds kind of gloomy here. He does state he's willing to die with Yeshua. Verses 17 through 19. So when Yeshua came, he found that he had already been in the tomb 4 days. Now Bethany was near Jerusalem, about 2 miles off, and many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to console them concerning their brother. Apparently that family was very well known in the area. Verses 20 through 22. Martha, therefore, when she heard that Yeshua was coming, went to meet him, but Mary still sat in the house. Mary, therefore, said to Yeshua, Master, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Even now I know that whatever you ask of Elohim, Elohim will give you. We tend to remember Mary and Martha from their account of Yeshua when he visited their house, if you'll recall. And in Luke 10, that's 38 through 42. And this is a classic account of two sisters. Now, as they were traveling along, he entered a certain village, and a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. And she had a sister called Mary, who, moreover, was listening to the Master's words, sitting at his feet. But Martha was distracted with all her preparations, and she came up to him and said, Master, do you not care that my sister's left me to do all the serving alone? Then tell her to help me. But the Master answered and said to her, Martha, Martha, you're worried and bothered about so many things, but only a few things are necessary, really only one. For Mary has chosen the good part, which shall not be taken away from her. That's how we remember Mary and Martha. John 11, verses 23 and 24. Yeshua said to her, your brother shall rise again. Martha said to him, I know that he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day. Well, now hold it. How did she know about the resurrection? How did she know about the resurrection? Was it something Yeshua had told her? No, it's a common teaching in the Tanakh, a very common teaching that there's going to be a resurrection. I've read some clowns write that, well, Paul invented the idea of the resurrection. Matter of fact, it was there was a lady with a PhD in religious studies that mentioned that in orientation when I took my oldest son to school. And pardon me, ma'am. Pardon me. Paul didn't make that up. That's Job says, yet I not be alive. I will face him. Daniel, the first 3 verses of chapter 12. There's many references to it in Isaiah also, and in the Psalms, for instance, Psalm 17:15. As for me, I shall behold your face in righteousness. I will be satisfied with your likeness when I awake. And I told her, what about the valley of the dry bones in Ezekiel chapter 37? And she said, well, I guess those things can be interpreted that way. Yes, they can. Well, how do you look at this one? As for me, I will behold your face in righteousness. I'll be satisfied with your likeness when I awake. Well, awake, that's just what we're talking about. This awake thing, that's just up from the dead. Psalm 49, verses 14 and 15. As sheep they were appointed for Sheol, for the grave. Death shall be their shepherd, and the upright shall rule over them in the morning. And their form shall be for the grave to consume, so that they have no habitation. But Elohim will redeem my life from the power of the grave, for he will receive me. Selah, think about it. Isaiah 26:19, your dead will live, their corpses will rise. You who lie in the dust, awake and shout for joy. For your dew is as the dew of the dawn, and the earth will give birth to the departed spirits. Isaiah 25:8, he will swallow up death for all time. And Adonai Yahweh will wipe tears away from their faces. He'll remove the reproach of his people from all the earth, for Yahweh has spoken. Yeah, I quoted that one to her too. Swallow up death for all time. And then what we just read in Daniel. Many of those who sleep in the dust of the ground will awake, these to everlasting life, but the others to disgrace and everlasting contempt. And those who have insight will shine brightly like the brightness of the expanse of heaven, and those who lead the many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. And this passage in Job is very interesting. Job 19, verses 25 through 27. And as for me, I know that my Redeemer lives, and at the last he will take his stand on the earth. Even after my skin is destroyed, yet from my flesh I shall see Elohim, whom I myself shall behold, and whom my eyes shall see and not another. My heart faints within me. Well, that's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. No, there's 7 or 8 witnesses to the fact. That's why she knew it, because it's in the scriptures. John 11, verses 25 and 26. Yeshua said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me shall live even if he dies. And everyone who lives and believes in me shall never die. Do you believe this? Here's that I am again. I am the resurrection and the life. So far, Yeshua has related himself to the people in things that they're very, very familiar with. I'm the bread of life. I'm the light of the world, bread, light. I'm the door. I'm the good shepherd. Now he's relating himself to the greatest hope in their entire lives, and that's the resurrection. He says he is the resurrection and the life. If one entrusts Yeshua Messiah, you won't die an eternal death. The worst that will happen is that we go to sleep. If they do that before Yeshua returns. But that could happen any time. He could come back at any time. I say just keep an eye on that Middle East.
Well, there's nothing else that really needs to happen.
No, nothing else needs to happen.
Except for a wedding and a war.
And not in that order either. The war first, then the wedding. Yep. Verse 27, she said to him, "Yes, Master, I have believed that you are the Messiah, the Son of Elohim, even he who comes into the world." Martha gives the same confession that Peter gave. In Matthew 16, verses 15 through 17, he said to them, "But who do you say that I am?" And Simon Peter answered and said, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living Elohim." And Yeshua answered and said to him, "Blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, because flesh and blood did not reveal this to you, but my Father who is in heaven." Well, now, she knows that he's the Messiah. We give all kinds of accolades to Peter for realizing this, but we got to remember Martha for doing the same thing. John 11, verses 28 through 31. And when she had said this, she went away and called Mary, her sister, saying secretly, "The teacher is here and calling for you." And when she heard it, she arose quickly and was coming to him. Now Yeshua had not yet come into the village, but she was still in place where Martha met him. The Jews then, who were with her in the house and consoling her, when they saw that Mary rose up quickly and went out, followed her, supposing that she was going to the tomb to weep there. Now, although Martha told her sister secretly, the crowds there, they saw Mary's reaction, so they followed, they went with her. This was not going to be a private event. Verse 32, therefore, when Mary came where Yeshua was, she saw him and fell at his feet, saying to him, "Master, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." Mary knows that Yeshua could have healed her brother, Eleazar, but she does not yet realize that Lazarus' death is not the end here. Yeshua was showing the people that he is the resurrection and the life, like he said. Yeshua wants us to know one fact. When we have a loved one who dies, they're not dead in the sense that we tend to look at it. They're asleep. When he returns, he will wake them with a shout. Verses 33 through 35. When Yeshua therefore saw her weeping, and the Jews who came with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and was troubled, and said, "Where have you laid him?" They said to him, "Master, come and see." Yeshua wept. Why did Yeshua weep when he knew that he was going to wake up Lazarus? Why did he do that?
Because of their unbelief?
I don't think that there was unbelief in that group. Because we had Martha just admit who he was. Mary would have been the same way. And they would have told the people the same. I think he felt their pain.
That's what I was saying.
That's kind of what I think. He really felt their pain. They were still wailing about this, I'm sure. And I've heard that at Jewish funerals it tends to be some wailing, or can be, and it wouldn't be surprising. Yeah.
They had history too. I mean, the connection and the Mary and her caring for, loving
Yeah.
beyond just loving the word and what he was saying.
Yeah.
But she truly cared dearly for him as a real close friend.
Right. They were close friends. That's exactly right. Here it is, right here in verse 33. And he was deeply moved in spirit and was troubled. And remember, if you hear the word spirit, think of your life. His life was deeply troubled about this. And that's what he was doing. I think he was, I think he found it more difficult not to weep with them. Verses 36 and 37. So the Jews were saying, behold how he loved him. But some of them said, could not this man who opened the eyes of him who was blind have kept this man also from dying? The healing of the blind man. Remember the blind man that had no eyes? Got blind since birth? See, that left a big impression on people. There were witnesses to that, but there didn't need to be any. Because when that guy walked around and could see, that was big. Verses 38 through 40. Yeshua, therefore, again, being deeply moved within, came to the tomb. Now it was a cave, and a stone was lying against it. Yeshua said, remove the stone. Martha, the sister of the deceased, said to him, Master, by this time there will be a stench, for he's been dead 4 days. Yeshua said to her, did I not say to you, if you believe, you will see the glory of Elohim? Dead 4 days. In the King James, it said, it's been 4 days. The body stinketh. I like that stinketh. See, he's decaying at this point. Verses 41 and 42. So they removed the stone. Yeshua raised his eyes and said, Father, I thank you that you heard me. And I know that you hear me always. But because of the people standing around, I said it that they may believe that you did send me. Yeshua audibly voices his prayer so the people would know that he's doing this for the glory of Elohim.
If he'd been dead for 4 days and stinketh, he would have stinketh.
Yeah, he would stinketh.
Not, he didn't stink it, so it's not a resurrection, but a resuscitation.
It is a resuscitation. Yes, it is a resuscitation. He didn't have an immortal body when he was resuscitated. Verses 43 and 44. And when he had said these things, he cried out with a loud voice, Lazarus, come forth. And he who had died came forth, bound hand and foot with wrappings, and his face was wrapped around with a cloth. Yeshua said to them, unbind him and let him go. When Lazarus was raised from the dead, he was still bound in that burial clothing. He still even had his face wrapped up. But when Yeshua resurrected, keep in mind, he came right out of those burial clothes. He left them behind. They just fell off. They didn't stay with him. Yeshua had a glorified body. And keep in mind, when they came to the Yeshua's grave and they rolled the stone away, well, that was so they could get in. That wasn't so he could get out. He already got out. He just would go through it. They're going to have to write new physics books after he returns. I don't know how that's going to work. It's going to be a little different. Verse 45 and 46, many therefore of the Jews who had come to Mary and beheld what he had done believed in him. But some of them went away to the Pharisees and told them the things which Yeshua had done. The people had two opinions of Yeshua. Either they entrusted in him or they did not. They either followed him or they were against him. There were no tweeners there. They either loved him or hated him. There was no middle of the road. See, in that day, many would rather cling to their religious traditions than cling to the word of the Father. That'd be terrible to do that, wouldn't it? To cling to your tradition, your religious traditions instead of the word of the Father. That'd be terrible if that ever happened today. They still do it, really? Okay, I think you're right. Verses 47 and 48, therefore the chief priests and the Pharisees convened a council and were saying, what are we doing? For this man is performing many signs. If we let him go on like this, all men will believe in him, and the Romans will come and take away both our place and our nation. They left out that word power. That's really what he meant, you know.
Which one were they most bought?
Yeah, uh-huh.
Which one were they most concerned about?
Yeah.
Nation or their...
Right. Well, look at this. This guy, the Messiah's come. They're going to start following him. They knew who he was. They weren't stupid. I mean, they watched the miracles that he did. They heard the teachings that they had. They sent their finest scholars to publicly humiliate him, and he shut every one of them up. It was brutal, I'll tell you. Well, all they were concerned about was losing their followers and their power. Didn't want to lose their power base. Do you see how their religion was as much of a political power thing as anything? That's what it was. And once you get that in your head, and that's what you live for, nothing else matters. They didn't realize that just a few years later they're going to lose everything. In 70 A.D., done. Rome will destroy them. Although in reading the details about it, the Jews put up a fierce fight. But boy, did they pay a price. Verses 49 through 52, but a certain one of them, Caiaphas, who was high priest that year, said to them, "You know nothing at all, nor do you take into account that it is expedient for you that one man should die for the people, and that the whole nation should not perish." Now this he did not say on his own initiative, but being high priest that year, he prophesied that Yeshua was going to die for the nation. And not for the nation only, but that he might also gather together into one of the children of Elohim who are scattered abroad. I find that Caiaphas' comment fascinating. He prophesied of Messiah's quest, and it says because he was the high priest, this took place. He was supposed to be the representative of the people before Elohim, and he should have gladly welcomed Yeshua as Messiah, but instead he led in the death of Messiah. Yeshua would die not just for the Jews who entrusted him, but for the scattered and lost sheep of the house of Israel. Caiaphas actually prophesies that Yeshua should die for all of the people, which is amazing, not just the Jews. In John 18, verse 14, now Caiaphas was the one who had advised the Jews that it was expedient for one man to die on behalf of the people. Verse 53, so from that day on, they planned together to kill him. So Caiaphas was instrumental in causing the death of Yeshua. He thought he could save the nation from being destroyed by Rome if he could have Yeshua killed. I don't know how he reasoned that out. That does not make any sense. But in his mind, apparently it did. As mentioned earlier, Rome destroyed Jerusalem, and that's less than 40 years away. And interestingly enough, this Caiaphas character, I don't know if you recall or if it was a big deal to you at all back in 92. This has been a big deal to me. They found his bones. And follow along with me here. Caiaphas was the Jewish high priest who presided over Yeshua Messiah's trial and crucifixion. Do we have any evidence for Caiaphas outside the biblical texts? In 1990, the family tomb of Caiaphas was accidentally uncovered during the construction of a water theme park in Israel. One of the limestone ossuaries. Now, you know what an ossuary is? When a body's decayed and only the bones are left, they would put them in a big stone box, and they would engrave who was in there at the time, and they called those ossuaries. And the tomb contained beautiful carvings that identified a much honored person in the Jewish religious system. Written twice on the ossuary is Joseph, son of Caiaphas. And it was found, I don't know where that is exactly, I guess where the water park was going. And Biblical Archaeology Review, the tomb of Caiaphas, bones found in the limestone ossuary. So in that box there, they did find his bones. And we read Matthew, Luke, and John each identify Caiaphas as the high priest that presided over the arrest of the trial of Yeshua. The historian Josephus also identifies Joseph Caiaphas as the Jewish high priest from 18 to 36 AD. Josephus also refers to him as Joseph, who was called Caiaphas of the high priesthood. Based on these historical records in Jewish tradition, it seems that the high priest at the time of Messiah's trial was commonly named Joseph, but was referred to by his family name Caiaphas. It also seems that we now have his actual bones, which is interesting. Going back to John 11, verse 54. Yeshua therefore no longer continued to walk publicly among the Jews, but went away from there to the country near the wilderness into a city called Ephraim, and there he stayed with his disciples. Yeshua's enemies will now publicly try to have him killed. Yeshua, he knows their hearts. He will no longer publicly walk among the Jews for that reason. Now, Ephraim is a small town about 15 miles north. And the last three verses, 55 through 57, now the Passover of the Jews was at hand. And many went up to Jerusalem out of the country before the Passover to purify themselves. Therefore they were seeking for Yeshua and were saying to one another as they stood in the temple, "What do you think, that he will not come to the feast at all?" Now the chief priests and the Pharisees had given orders that if anyone knew where he was, he should report it, that they might seize him. So Passover's coming, the gathering, everyone's coming in. They were wondering if Yeshua was going to attend this year, since they knew the Sanhedrin wanted to kill him. The public appearances of Yeshua are almost at an end. He's now entering his last week before his death. And you knew the next time he appears publicly, if word got out that he actually rose a guy from the dead, how do you think he's going to be greeted? Do you think he'd be greeted with maybe people waving palm branches and just applauding him? And that may be the way they greet him, because they may say, "This is the guy." They may greet him that way, although their hearts aren't in it. But gee, he did that great thing. And word got out. But he's about a week before his death now. A great prophet has risen among us, and Elohim has visited his people. And this report concerning him went out all over Judea and in all the surrounding district. And there was Lazarus also, or Eliezer, as we just talked about, and he was probably an elderly man. Now, these incidences that we're talking about are not resurrections per se. A resurrection is an immortal body, like Yeshua. He's the first to resurrect. These were more like resuscitations. Paul described a resurrection in 1 Corinthians 15, starting at verse 50, where we read, "Now I say this, brethren, that flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of Elohim, nor does a perishable inherit the imperishable." See what he's talking about? He said that a kingdom's eternal. If we're going to inherit an eternal kingdom, we too must be eternal. "Behold, I tell you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed. In a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trumpet, for the trumpet will sound, and the dead will be raised imperishable, and we shall be changed. For this perishable must put on the imperishable, and this mortal must put on immortality. But when this perishable will have put on the imperishable, and this mortal will have put on immortality, then will come about the saying that is written, Death is swallowed up in victory. O death, where is your victory? O death, where is your sting?" Yeshua had many different methods of healing people. If you look, he touched them, he spoke to them, he allowed them to touch his garment, or he just let them display their faithfulness. You know, there are times they'd line up the people, and he'd walk through them, and they would touch his seats as he would drive by, or walk by, not drive by. But you know, when he brought someone from the dead to resuscitate them, he always did it the same way. He spoke. Why speak to them to do that? Why speak to him, speak to these people that were dead? You know why?
Giving him his breath.
Well, that's true, yes. It's because they could hear him. It's because they could hear him. The dead can hear his voice. Yes. And that's what it said. When he comes, it's going to be with a shout. Wake up. That's it. And a trumpet. A shout. Wake up. Trumpet. What's that mean? A symbol. That's right. And that's when it says, as he's coming down, we'll meet him in the air. And come down with him. John 11. Any questions? Any thoughts? Okay, let's pray and we'll be dismissed. Heavenly Father, we thank you for your word, which is truly a gift greater than we deserve. We, as always, Father, we pray that you open our ears and open our eyes and hearts to your message and to your truth. And may Yahweh bless us and keep us. And may Yahweh make his face shine upon us and be gracious unto us. And may Yahweh lift up his countenance upon us and give us shalom. Amen.